this, we're working on some lips. Let's have a closer look. And oh, by the way, don't mind these crazy headsets. It's just I can listen to some tunes, and if my phone rings, even if the compressor is running, the client or the other person on the other line can hear me just fine with no background noise. Awesome. So check out the 3 levels of lips. So this one here is all finished. I did that one a couple days ago, and this one here looked like that. So there was a lot of glue, like rubber glue, there for the seam, like how a split rim usually is put together. It was just very, very nasty. It was a pain to get off, but it looks really nice. And when the rim is all finished, I will have it a full brush finish, so it looks like it just came from the factory, but when you take it out and put it all together, it feels like it just came out fresh out the box. Now there was one rim that was slightly different than the other ones because they were powder. This one was powder coated, and we're gonna make a quick video on how to get one of these polished up. So let's slap it on. Go. It's not going to go anywhere, and now we can spin them. So the next step is to get the valve stem out. This particular valve stem would be a 12 mil. As you can see, this rubber is kind of old and it's cracking. So I'm just going to give them back to the customer. He can decide what he wants to do with it. I'm pretty sure he's going to put new valve stems in it. So as you can see, I'm working on the back side of the rim first. The reason being is, well, I don't need to really be too careful around that, and the more shiny stuff that's around, the more shiny stuff you could touch. So that means the more chance you have to redo something. So that's why I like to do this first. Definitely not necessary step to do. I just like to do it because it looks very nice when you put your wheels back together. They just look like they came fresh out the box. It cleans it up. The tire beat will be seating a lot nicer. So I'm actually running a satin airway buff, which is basically a red Scotch Brite on a wheel. And as this one is wore down, you can crank the RPMs up quite a bit. I'm running it at 5,000 or 6,000 RPMs right now, and as you can see, the finish is already starting to get nicer. I'm going to put it in fast forward mode right now and pass over everything at least once more. Now it's time to sand the front side of the rim. These ones are actually in fairly good shape, so I'm going to use a 500 grit sanding paper on a rotary machine. It's a DeWalt Unox. It's by far the nicest rotary sanding machine. It takes care of things quickly, but you can also damage stuff quickly, so you got to be very careful and cautious on how you use one of these. So I'm just gonna fast forward this right quick. I'm using the grinder in all the different angles, really get it in there and get every angle just right. Switching over to an 800 grit sanding paper now. The machine is turning at 4,500 RPMs and following all the angles once more. This would be a finishing grit. So after the sanding, the necessary step is the cutting process, which is a orange buffing wheel, preferably at a higher RPM, around 6,000, used with a Tripoli, as you can see in the video right now. I applied a little bit of compound. That's Tripoli. It's a brown compound, which is a very maybe fairly aggressive compound. It's designed to remove sanding marks or oxidation off of aluminum. I would not recommend this compound for any stainless. I'm using this little grinder with a about halfway worn down buffing wheel to get really tight into the back little lip with all the little tiny holes where the face and the other barrel is mounted to. I'm going to fast forward now. I just swapped over to a 6,000 RPM grinder. This machine has a 5.3 horsepower motor in, so you can really push hard on it without it bugging down whatsoever. I'm using a orange cutting buff with the Tripoli just in the previous step with the smaller grinder, and really get some heat going and get that first cut just perfect. As you can see, I angled the buffing wheel into the inside, and then I angled it so it kind of wants to go towards the outside. So you're creating a cross cut to get a very nice cut. And absolutely don't forget about the little lip. I just swapped over to a yellow cotton untreated buff, also on a 6,000 RPM, giving it a quick rake to take all the burn on rouge and metal particles off. Recharging it with a synthetic cutting compound, perfect for a secondary cut. In a secondary cut, basically all you're doing is refining your cutting marks. A yellow buff is a little bit softer than an orange one. I'm still using it at 6,000 RPM. The synthetic compound is a bit softer than the Tripoli, which is basically made out of rotten rocks. So you're really refining your previous step this way. Most people would go with a color after the cut and then a finish. Well, technically I am coloring right now, but using a cutting compound, that's fairly fine. I find this is more effective and it will give me a better finish. I just swapped over to a variable speed buffer and a flannel buff. I'm using a rake to really take off the burn on rouge and the metal particles off. A little bit of renegade purple will go a long ways and it'll give you an exceptional finish. When you're using a flannel buff to finish, it is recommended to use it between 18 and 2400 RPMs. Reason being is this buff is very soft, and at a higher RPM, it can fly apart. Finishing with a flannel buff is very nice because they're very, very soft, and you get a super high gloss finish. When you're using one of these, it is also very good practice to really work that finishing compound into the pores of the aluminum and clean your buffing wheel regularly. As you can see in the video, now I'm using the rake and I'm going to reapply some compound so that you can really get that super high gloss finish. And that compound has sealers built into it, so you can really work that into the pores of the aluminum for a super long lasting shine and a super high gloss finish. So I got all the sanding and the polishing done. So what I'm going to do take all the screws that I put in, take that out, try to do that very carefully without damaging the shine, without touching the shine. So you brush this backside, and then after the backside was brushed, I sand it down the barrel with 500 and 800 grit on a rotary sander at about 4,500 RPMs with a flexible backing plate. So it being a flexible backing plate, it really helps putting a good sanding on, so it kind of molds to the surface you're trying to polish. And the prep is very important if you want something to have a longer lasting shine, right? So, one more. It should be fine this way. Should take one more. There we go. Very careful. There we go. So it's all nice, super glossy. The inside of the barrel is all nicely brushed. As you can tell, the customer put on each rim what the location was. So this one was a rear left. So I took that off and I put it back on nice and neat where the bell stem is. And yeah, so that's the finished product. Let's have a look at how it was before. That was before. So what we're gonna do on this one is the exact same thing to make it look like that. And